Stool-Mutt, the official novel. Chapter 3, The Butt Layer. Stool-Mutt saw as Buttman pressed the button and a gate unleashed 10 butt robots directly towards the two of them. Stool-Mutt jumped in front of Jaquavius to try to block them. He was able to block them, but the swarm pushed the two to the edge of the platform. Stool-Mutt, panicking, started pushing through the swarm and dragging Jaquavius with him. With even more cuts on his body from fighting other robots to get through the swarm, he came out of the other end. Buttman saw as Stool-Mutt beat and grabbed and slammed every single thing that he just threw at him, and before he knew it, all the robots were destroyed. Well, shit, that didn't work, Buttman said before Stool-Mutt came running at him. Stool-Mutt dropped Jaquavius' hand and ran at Buttman and punched him in the jaw, flinging him back. Stool-Mutt grabbed him and threw him onto the ground. Stool-Mutt got on his knees next to Buttman. "What are you doing to him?" he said with a pain in his voice. Buttman crawled back slightly. "Something long overdue. Something that'll make me your perfect match," Buttman said. Stool-Mutt looked around with confusion at all the vials, tubes, and wiring, and this weird green fluid seemingly flowing in each of these items. He turned around, looking at Jaquavius, who was standing there awkwardly. Stool-Mutt looked back at Buttman, who was still cowering in the corner, wiping blood from his nose. Buttman stood up and looked at Stool-Mutt mischievously before pressing a button built into his glove. Stool-Mutt cautiously looked around, searching for something to happen, but it never did. He glanced at the walls, the weird contraptions littered around, and even the broken robots, but nothing happened. Not one movement, until BAM! Stool-Mutt was slammed into by a decently sized bird-like robot, breaking a rib or two. Stool-Mutt was flown outside the laboratory through the same place they entered from. The bird, still ramming into Stool-Mutt, carried him over the lake and flew him into the cliffside, trying to scrape him off his head. Stool-Mutt bashed and battered at the robot, trying to get it to stop, pulling on its rods and clawing at the metal parts. Meanwhile, back at the butt layer, Buttman is scurrying around, grabbing vials and syringes. He runs over to each corner, preparing something, grabbing items and murmuring to himself. Stool-Mutt grabbed onto a chip in the back, tearing it out and sending it plummeting down. Stool-Mutt grabbed onto the wiring of the bird, steering the crash towards the entrance of the layer. The bird is falling fast, losing altitude by the second. The bird glides towards the entrance, shooting out sparks and making clanking noises. The bird is about to reach the entrance when it drops from the sky. Then Stool-Mutt's hand grappled onto the side of the ledge at the last second, pulling himself up. He stood there with burns and scrapes from the cliffside the bird ground him on. "You ain't getting rid of me that easily," Stool-Mutt said proudly. "Fuck," Buttman yells while scurrying quicker than before. Stool-Mutt ran into the laboratory, trying to catch Buttman. He hopped back and forth, trying to grab the skinny man in front of him. Buttman leaps back and forth, narrowly dodging Stool-Mutt's attempts to grab him, and then kicks Stool-Mutt in the chest. Buttman leaps back and grabs one more vial filled with green liquid from earlier and throws it in the duffel bag he was carrying around. Stool-Mutt grabbed a broken robot off the ground and attempts to hit Buttman with it. Buttman nearly dodges it, jumping backwards. "You're getting slow, aren't you, Mutt?" Buttman said teasingly. "Oh, we're just getting started," Stool-Mutt said, finally grabbing onto Buttman and holding him still. "What are you going to do to him?" "This is the last time I'm going to ask," Stool-Mutt said angrily. "Even if I did tell you, you can't do it now. It's already done," Buttman said, breaking free of Stool-Mutt's grasp. Buttman tapped on a keypad, opening a door into a dark corridor. The corridor was gloomy, and Stool-Mutt could feel the cold air from where he stood. "Thank you for the entertainment, but it's time for me to make my leave," Buttman says as he flees down the corridor, and the door immediately shuts behind him. "I have no idea what just happened," Jaquavius said. Stool-Mutt walked over to Jaquavius, trying to ignore what just happened. "That is the most intense altercation I've had with that man in 3 years. He normally just blows up my house." Stool-Mutt says completely normally. "Normally?" Jaquavius said, astonished by the world this man lives in compared to his. Stool-Mutt walked over to Moist Critical, tearing him from the machine and setting him against the wall. "He's pretty beaten up. I don't know if he's going to wake up anytime soon," Stool-Mutt said to the still confused Jaquavius. "I'll stay with him," Jaquavius said, shaking off his confusion. Stool-Mutt walked over to the computers, all with data and numbers. Only one computer was on it. It showed a home screen with different files and applications, none of which Stool-Mutt recognized. Stool-Mutt read the files: Buttbot, version 1, Buttbird, version 1, and Stool-Mutt. Stool-Mutt didn't pay any attention to them until he stumbled upon a file that was mildly concerning: enhancing serum. Stool-Mutt opened the file, examining the images in a 3D model it pulled up. One of the images stated that the DNA of a muscular man was needed, and another image showed the same green liquid that had been flowing through the pipes and the same green liquid that Buttman took with him. Through further examination, there were the same cables and devices that were hooked up to Moist Critical, and the last image had a strand of DNA labeled Malcolm. Stool-Mutt knew that name. It was Buttman's real name. Stool-Mutt always just called him Buttman to make fun of him, but his real name was Malcolm Hamburg Butt, or Dr. Butt. It wasn't the best name, but it was clear who it was when it was mentioned. Stool-Mutt stood up and walked over to Jaquavius in the passed out Moist Critical. Seems that this whole ordeal isn't over with quite yet, Stool-Mutt said, still concerned about what was on the computer. What did you Jaquavius said before getting cut off by an alarm. Evacuate the building now. The lab will self-destruct in 1 minute. An alarm blared through the small lab. Shit! Stool-Mutt yelled, grabbing Jaquavius and Moist Critical, trying to find an exit. There isn't an exit besides the ledge we entered, Jaquavius said. We're gonna have to jump, Stool-Mutt says, pushing both of them to the edge. You go first. I'll grab Moist Critical and be right behind you, Stool-Mutt said, urging Jaquavius off. Okay, but you better not die on me, Jaquavius said before jumping off the ledge into the water. Stool-Mutt ran over to Moist Critical, throwing him on his back like a backpack. Stool-Mutt struggled to walk over to the ledge due to Moist Critical being on his back, but he was able to make it without collapsing. Stool-Mutt jumped off the edge, falling with a passed-out man on his back, landing in the water below. Stool-Mutt slammed into the water, knocking the breath out of him as he face-planted onto concrete. Jaquavius dragged Moist Critical to the shore, same with Stool-Mutt. I think I've had enough of this whole Buttman versus Stool-Mutt thing for the day, Jaquavius said with exhaustion behind his voice. Let's get this man to the hospital, he continued to add on. Yeah, Stool-Mutt finally replied, realizing all the injuries they both suffered. Let's do that.